Many Marvel Snap players ask us, Marvel Snap Zone, what is the best Season Pass card so far? Is it Wave, the most impactful card in the eyes of many coming out of the first ever Season Pass, not available to all players through that route and often having to be found in Pool 3 if you missed it? It creates game-defining play patterns and has an incredible synergy with cards like Death and She-Hulk that have allowed it to see play since it was created. Is it Silver Surfer, currently one of the top cards in the metagame, showing many archetypes the power of 3-cost cards and giving you piles of stats on the final turn that sometimes the opponent cannot be prepared for? Today, we're going to challenge both of those cards when we take a look at the upcoming Season Pass card for Season 8 of Marvel Snap. It's time to take a look at Zabu. That's right, Season 8 of Marvel Snap is on the way, tentatively titled Savage Land, although that's not an official name at this time. It's set to kick off on January 3rd, 2022 at 3 AM GMT, and with it comes potentially the scariest Season Pass card so far in the form of Zabu. We could definitely imagine this one being as impactful as its two previous contenders, if not slightly better, and it's time for us to find out why. Zabu is a 3-cost card with 2 power with a very strong ongoing effect. Your 4-cost cards cost 2 less, down to a minimum of 1. That's quite the reduction. Why is that, you might think? Why are we so worried about Zabu? Why are so many people talking about the impact it is about to have? Well, Sarah is one of the very good cards in Marvel Snap and has showed us why cheating on your energy count can be exceptionally powerful. In this case, the 4-cost cards in the game are very, very solid, including haymakers like Wong, Shuri, White Queen and Moon Girl. Did you know that Hellcow was once considered the best card in the game at one point? Yeah, back when it used to cost 2 energy during beta. And do you know what makes Hellcow cost 2 energy again? That's right, Zabu is going to bring that play pattern back. Usually these kind of videos and articles we create are theory craft guides divided by their synergies, showcasing some decks that we've built around the new card. However, here's the deal for Zabu. We managed to find so many decks to build around this card that it felt natural to focus this video around those kind of exclusively. It also doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that Zabu wants you to play 4-cost cards in your deck, so the synergies part would have been a bit dull. As such, let's embark on a journey of many, many deck lists, each of them showcasing a different way to use Zabu's ability to create or reinforce a strong game plan. Not all of them will be metagame defining, and that's not the goal here anyway, but look at how many decks appear to make sense around the new Season Pass card, and then tell me that you don't think it's going to be a really scary one. Just a small disclaimer before we dive into the madness that Zabu can bring. I think this card concept's really sweet, and being a low power card, it should open up counterplay from opponents to counter it with cards like Enchantress on turn 4 with priority. This largely limits how much Zabu can take over a game if the card becomes so popular. More importantly, however, the season details for the upcoming season are not final and are data mined for the sake of this video and are not the final product. So who knows? This card may change last minute, the season could be something entirely different, and this video could be very much a future look at what Zabu could bring should for some reason it not be the card released like we are expecting. So please do keep that in mind. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel here at Marvel Snap Zone. Loving putting out this content for you 7 days a week, and hopefully you are enjoying it too. So make sure you like the video, leave a comment down below to help keep the algorithm happy, and make sure you aren't missing out on any content from us by turning on those notifications. Cool, disclaimers aside, let's start taking a look at some deck lists with Zabu. Up first, we have got KaZaBu. Seems like a pretty natural fit and a lovely pun that I refuse to remove from the video. Series 4 and 5 cards have created quite the controversy in Marvel Snap, often being criticised as being too difficult to obtain, especially for those who do not or have not finished pull 3 just yet. Well, do not worry, if you are on a budget, Zabu is still very playable for you, with very little resources indeed. Series 4 and 5 not required in order to abuse this card. In this deck, only Hellcow is included as it looks bonkers with Zabu, and the rest of the cards are from Pool 1 and Pool 2, and actually represent an archetype that isn't seeing all that much play anymore, the discard-based versions of KaZaBu. The concept of this deck is to play like a regular KaZaBu deck, flooding the board with cheap cards and buffing them with Kazar and Blue Marvel. Except because our hand tends to be empty, it's quite fast, we look to abuse Strong Guy and activate its ongoing ability, creating a lot more points in the process. So what is Zabu doing for this deck exactly? It creates a stupidly strong turn 6, where we can play Kazar, Strong Guy, and Hellcow all at the same time, generating more than 20 power in the process, and emptying our hand with the discard effect of Hellcow. This deck was actually a thing back in the summer during the beta of Marvel Snap, but since then, Strong Guy and Hellcow have both been nerfed and no longer cost the 2 energy they did before, making the deck much more explosive when it had that power available to it. Zabu is looking to take us down memory lane and show us why both of those cards were deservedly nerfed way back when. Up next, it's time for us to look at a more hand-sized base deck, tentatively titled Good Cards Zabu. Moon Girl and White Queen currently represent the backbone of Devil Dinosaur's support package, and both cards just happen to cost 4. It could already be enough to consider Zabu in the deck all by itself, but there's actually many other good cards that could be considered in the deck that weren't included for consistency purposes. With Zabu in the mix, we can unbalance the deck in a spread of energy and include way more 4-cost cards like Jessica Jones and even Shuri, for example. This makes the deck a little more heavy in the second part of the game, but we shouldn't feel it as long as we're able to draw into our new card. With Moon Girl included, we could even just play 4-cost cards for the rest of the game on some occasions. With Quinjet also in play, imagine how sweet it's gonna be to play both Devil Dinosaur and White Queen on the same turn on turn 5, and then maybe do it all over again on turn number 6. I think a card that benefits a ton from Zabu's addition is Jessica Jones, a card that fell out of favour with White Queen taking over in the leader metagame, but has always been a solid play on turn 4 for many decks. Now, it's very easy to picture the card being among the most common inclusions in a Zabu deck, simply to increase the amount of 4-cost cards you are able to play. Moving on to our next Fruit Loop, we've got Hela Discard. What's stronger on turn 6, I hear you ask? Hela or Hellcow plus Ghost Rider plus Absorbing Man to copy the Ghost Rider? The answer is, why choose? Just pick the one that you've got. Thanks to Zabu. Also, you can replace Ghost Rider with Jubilee in this combo if Hela's still in your deck and have a very similar result. Hela Discard has always been an unreliable deck, commonly referred to as a casino by many of Marvel Snap's players, requiring players to be very smart with your snaps and your retreats in order to maximise the deck's potential. As such, every time I see a card that might make it more reliable, I immediately think about this deck and how it could help it out. Now, I'm not so sure if this take on Hela Discard is necessarily going to be better than the one that we currently have, as we have to cut 5-cost cards to make room for all these 4-cost cards and Zabu. However, there's always been a debate around Jubilee, Ghost Rider, and even Absorbing Man in this deck, and which card was optimal considering the limited space that you had to work with. In this debate, Zabu offers you another possibility. Take out the 5s and play them all, which creates another path to a stupidly strong turn 6 for a deck like this one. This is just one of the various combos you should look to study with Zabu, and one of the many things it can achieve when it hits the board. If we're looking for combos, we've got an even spicier one if you have access to Series 5. Let's take a look at Darkhawk. Just like other Series 5 cards, Darkhawk has been very discreet with its release. Very few players have decided to spend the 6,000 collector's tokens required to acquire the card, and that's even if it appeared in their shop in the first place. But Darkhawk is a 4-cost, and as the new season will start, this precise mana cost might become the new gold standard. In the first 3 decks, we focus on how Zabu was just helping the deck to get a little bit more high roll going on, offer some sweet final turns to surprise the opponent who thought they had a read on what our deck was capable of doing. Let's scratch all that let's take it up a notch. Make Zabu the key card in the deck and abuse it as much as we possibly can. First, something important to understand about this is if you have Zabu and Sarah in play, your 4-cost cards will cost you 1. Using Mystique on Zabu also works to get your 4-cost cards to cost 1, meaning on turn 6 you could play 6 4-cost cards, and good luck to whoever has to deal with that. Also, with that many cards being potentially playable, you can have the luxury of playing reactive cards like Shang-Chi in order to still combo and remove some of your opponent's counterplay at the same time. I don't think this archetype is necessarily very strong, as we all know what happens when Wong is very popular. He's pretty easy to get shut down. Still, think about some of the crazy stuff that you can happen when you play Zabu on 3 and Sarah on 5. Darkhawk plus Mystique plus Rock Slide and Absorbing Man or Wong to duplicate Rock Slide. Make all the rocks, all the rocks, all the many rocks. Darkhawk on a lane plus Mystique to contest another one. Shang-Chi on a lane, Absorbing Man on another lane to remove all the big cards at several locations. Wong plus Rock Slide plus Absorbing Man on a lane, Darkhawk on another one, Shang-Chi on another one. Still have the mana to throw a Korg in there for good measure. Now imagine what happens when we're throwing Moon Girl into the mix on turn 4 and all these cards are playable twice during the last turn. I'll just give you the best combo in the game because it's such a funny one. If you play Zabu on turn 3, Moon Girl on turn 4, Black Widow for good measure, Sarah on turn 5, you can Wong, Rock Slide, Absorbing Man on a lane, and Darkhawk on both of the other lanes. And the worst of all of this is that best play pattern is probably to similarly play Wong and Rock Slide alongside each other on turn 4, shuffling 4 rocks into the opposing deck. That's often just going to be enough to ruin the opponent's day anyway. This is easily the deck I am most excited about with Zabu's release, and is the sole reason why Darkhawk is currently pinned in my shop, as I want to play this really bad for content reasons. So, again, don't think it's going to be great, but this one's hella sweet, and I highly recommend trying it out if you happen to have access to it. Up next, definitely something a little more out of the way. Omega Red, a card that we're interested in playing now. Alright, Zabu, it's become pretty clear that you can be played in a ton of decks, but can you make Omega Red work? Let's be clear. If something of the sort becomes competitive enough to be considered good with the addition of Zabu, it will end the debate on what the best season pass is. Until that happens, let's take a look at how Zabu can help this deck out. Firstly, it's going to disguise the key card in the deck, allowing you to play it on turn 6 alongside Iron Man for a sneaky surprise. Then, it also makes the combo more flexible. We can play Shuri, Warpath, and Omega Red on turn 6 all at the same time, which should make the lane good enough to trigger Omega Red. Considering we can even fit Wave in on 3 and Onslaught on 4 before going Zabu on 5 into all of our 4 costs, that seems like it could be potentially quite strong. Lastly, because our 4 costs are much cheaper, we can include more situational cards, such as Spider-Man, in order to both progress our game plan and mitigate the opponent's want as well. In a deck looking to crush a single location, preventing the opponent from playing there does seem like it might be pretty good. And then, of course, we have one final deck for today to see just how far we can really push Zabu. Let's take a look at Crystal. If this one works out, Zabu's the best card in Marvel Snap. I don't want to hear a thing about it. This deck is basically all in on Zabu and packs the most stupid things you can do with the card into the same shell. Because our hand becomes quite cheap with Zabu in play, managing our hand outside of the discard archetype seems pretty reasonable for a card like Dracula. For the same reason, we might lack cards on turn 5, so Crystal can serve as a refill on turn 6. We still have Wong, Shuri, and Moon Girl as that extremely scary trio to abuse alongside Zabu, and Darkhawk and Rock Slide might be played in every Zabu deck, considering just how synergistic they are together and the fact they both cost 4. There are other cards I consider to be very strong with Zabu, such as Spider-Man mentioned above, or Absorbing Man, considering some solid on reveals are also 4-cost cards. If this kind of stuff your deck with good 4-cost abilities is able to work, it should definitely show that Zabu is way out of line. I have a personal rule of not investing real money into games outside of series passes, basically. It helps me make a barrier and not go crazy whenever there's something that catches my eye in a shop that I'm desperate to play. But I have to admit, Zabu's going to make that very hard for people that don't want to buy season passes, as I truly anticipate this card is going to be very, very powerful. There might be a time where we just have to focus on countering it and run some cards dedicated to the cause to make our opponent's decks very inconsistent and top-heavy as a result. For example, there could be a lot of upside to Enchantress, who fell out of popularity lately, or even Super Scroll, a very disappointing card so far from Series 5, but who could suddenly get much better, because they also both cost 4. Funnily enough, both of them are great with Zabu themselves. I recognise that we might have gone a bit crazy in this one. Maybe Zabu doesn't push as many decks as featured in this article. We just want to showcase some of what is available to do with the card, and we definitely could have featured more decks, to be fair. Things like Discard Lockjaw, more decks around Wong, some greedy builds with Dracula and Jubilee. The possibilities of this card are so wide and so endless, and I guess we're only going to know the real power of it when we finally get it in our hands to play some games. Until that time, I hope you're all having a good time in Marvel Snap. As usual, you can come and find us in the Marvel Snap Zone Discord if you like. Link to that is in the description box down below, or you can find us directly over on social media at DenCCG if you want to go have a chat with Den from the article for this video. You can find me at HowlingMines if you want to talk shop about this video, or you can find the team in general at Marvel Snap Zone for all things Marvel Snap. But until next time, I have been HowlingMines. You've been amazing. Hopefully you've enjoyed the first video of the year. Happy New Year to you all, and I'll see you soon for some Zabu gameplay.